Hey there, monkeys. Grab that cup of coffee, kick back, and relax. We'll get started with a SITREP in just a minute. All right. Hey, good morning, folks. Mil-Spec Optic here. It's going to be your SITREP. It's February 1st, 2024, and we are coming to you live here from the Monkey Lounge in the great state of Texas. And so, man, this is some interesting data points for you today. I think you're going to get a lot out of it, just given the fact that there's a lot of things happening around the world. But we need to stay focused. Military movements, what's happening in Ukraine, because even though we feel like it's kind of sunset, we're not hearing a lot about it, they're running out of ammo, and I'm going to show you evidence of that. But I think what we have here is there's going to be a very short lull, and I think NATO is about to engage. And I say that just because of what NATO has been saying, okay? Why all of a sudden is Poland and Germany and everybody else on that eastern flank side of the, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, they're all in some type of a panic mode because they feel like Russia is about to go beyond the Ukraine borders, not only take Ukraine, but actually start to attack them. I don't know if that's the case. More than likely, it's NATO that's going to instigate this. And I'm going to show you some comments by the deep state that will probably show that may be an indicator. Then, of course, also, we got a lot of activity going on. There's an exercise off of the Southern California coastline. We're going to look at that a little closer. We're going to look at the air refuelers. When I show you how many have been up just in the last couple of days, the amount of H-47s that have been up in just the last couple of days, there is definitely a significant uptick in terms of U.S. military activity domestically and abroad. So buckle up. This is going to be interesting. All right, so let's get on over here to the mini board as we look at SkyGlass, and I cannot wait. The new variant comes out here in about 15, 20 days. It's roughly that time frame, couple of weeks, and really excited about it because it's going to give you a whole bunch of new capabilities. But as we're looking at it right now, we've gone in and just peeled back the Tex 2s and the T-38s and the EC-45s. 130 of those, 130, just like that's sinking. That's how beautiful the weather is in Texas. A lot of training aircraft in the skies here, but we've already stripped those out. So that gives us around 254 aircraft, military only, across the United States. Again, we're not seeing fighters, right? So on top of that, you have a lot of fighters that are up. Now, we've had an interesting another data point for you, and that is this, H-60 Blackhawks. Last night, we had 70 of those at 9 p.m. at night in the air, and it wasn't out here in this area where they've got all the exercise and training going on. It was all across the United States. Very unusual. Normally, 6 to 8. We don't see a ton of those typically, all right? Now, this stuff here in the Panhandle could be training, but you got your Spec Ops community out here also, and so they may be doing a little bit of extra work here, getting in the hours. All right, but that's your H-60 Blackhawks across the U.S. And so we'll take those out, put our board back to where it was. Now, look at the air refuelers up currently right now. That is just the KC-135s. Now I'm going to bundle the Pegasus, which is the 767-200 aircraft, All right. And that gives you kind of a full-on blend across the United States eastern seaboard. We don't even have any exercises going on here. Look at the amount of stuff we are keeping in the air using these guys, okay? That's a lot. So we got 36, 38 on the screen. I think 36 is the total number. And let me take those away. And then I'm going to show you what it looked like over the last couple days. Look at this. This is just last 3 days. Okay, we're going to look at Europe first. Notice you got some stuff going on in and out of Italy over into Kuwait. Now, that's significant because we're seeing more activity going into Doha and Kuwait right now, which means the Iranians may be about to get popped. All right. Now, pretty heavy stream going in and out of Europe across the area that looks like a transition, which let me hit pause for a second and let me back that up. As we look at those lines that are coming out of the UK, right? Remember, we saw a sea of air refuelers going into England. Now we're seeing them come out of England and headed across Europe. And then where did they go? They went down south and into the Middle East, all right? So that means we've probably just pushed a whole bunch of fighters across the drink and down into that area, which means very likely that what we have is the precursor of either something popping off either in Iran or Syria or some kind of major airstrike that is going to be a prolonged campaign to maybe nip all of this in the bud. Now, the big question is, does the big guy have the huevos rancheros to get it done? I probably think not, but we'll see what happens. All right. His speech after our soldiers got killed was quite the letdown. But hey, listen, this guy's been a letdown his entire life, so let's just move on. But yeah, I'm seeing the ones that landed in England all of a sudden transitioning over to what looks to be the Middle East. All right, that's the air refuelers and probably taking the fighters with them. Notice the little marshalling points. All right, so we've got a big exercise going on in Europe. You expect to see some of that. It looks like these other guys are passing through. But look at the United States. That's an insane amount of air refueling. Now, of course, you see it down off the Southern California coastline. Look up the East Coast, right? These are the little circles. That's a marshalling pattern. That's where they hold. Fighters come in and get juice. Now, that right there, that's where the big exercise is happening. So you expect to see a massive amount, and it is. That tells you there is a sea of fighters involved in the exercise off of the Southern California coast. But we've got them all the way into Hawaii, so you probably have F-22s coming out of Hickam, etc. All right, that's your air refuelers. So give you a little bit of an idea of how much we are flexing right now in terms of fighters, etc. Okay, now let's look at the intel community, and then we'll get into the Swift airs, etc. Now, this big thing is, remember, recon, intel, these are the really high-tech aircraft, not drones, right? Notice the one headed up towards Reno, right? That's a place we put a lot of immigrants or illegals, right? Across Texas, you expect that. Tucson, that's the community. It's where they operate out of, a lot of them. Notice this little one back and forth over Georgia, right? Right there. You've got one, looks like it transitions into Tennessee. But this one down towards Savannah, et cetera, that's a little bit of a data point for you. There are eyes on something there. And more than likely, it's the illegals we're putting into our country, and they're trying to just, they're looking at probably their cell phone traffic, right, et cetera, because we did give them cell phones. Okay. And the usual, the Baltics area headed up across Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, right, looking very closely at Russia and Belarus. And then notice the traffic. They seem to be looking very closely at Crimea, right? This whole area into Ukraine, that eastern flank of Ukraine. And then we can see the stuff that transitions down into what looks to be looking very closely at Libya and that kind of stuff, right? Down into the Mediterranean. Israel, the usual stuff we expect to see. Of course, their northern border is starting to go hot, folks. And we'll talk about that more in another episode. But today we're looking at Ukraine. Now look at the work going on down into Malaysia, right? Looking down under. And I'm just showing this because, we've got a lot of people that are following us now from South Africa, Australia, other places, Germany, Canada, all around the world, which is just simply amazing that our community is just growing leaps and bounds. So we're going to start to kind of spread our wings a little, looking closer at those areas. Again, nothing happening down in those two right now, at least from an Intel community standpoint, okay? All right, R135s. What are they looking like? Yeah, you expect to see that one coming down out over the area where they're doing the exercises. You can see that snake tongue looking down at the Texas border. Notice we got some flights that are just kind of doing little flyover there up to Alaska, across Canada. But look at Europe, all right? This kind of tells the story of what they're really, truly worried about. Crimea seems to be the place that everything is eyes on at the moment, right? The normal locations, but that one back and forth over Constanta looking at Crimea. It's because Crimea is a big, big Russian base and a stronghold, all right? Okay, let's look at C-17s. We're going to take a gander at a little bit of the logistics side of the house and just to see, notice again, out over that water area. I don't know what a C-17 is doing in that region, honestly. It doesn't make any sense to me unless people are jumping out of these aircraft. So, but again, U.S., it's pretty heavy last 3 days, right? You can see some stuff headed down into what looks to be Haiti, right? And then I can see some things happening across Europe as always, right? That big strand. We got some stuff up into Norway, onesie twosies into RZE Poland right here. Again, big broken strand. Where's that headed? Into the Middle East, okay? Look at this. A lot of activity going into Doha, right? And then notice too, we're starting to put a lot of stuff into Jordan, which is just on the other side of the fence from the West Bank. Probably pumping stuff into Palestine, if I had to guess, all right? Okay, domestically, let's look at Homeland Security. For the U.S., just notice, you've got it up there, Chicago, Detroit kind of area, right up into Michigan, Buffalo, New York. You get down here, notice a lot of activity down into the islands. Right? Kind of strange to see us. I mean, I know we've got a presence. That's the U.S. Virgin Islands. It's part of us. Right? Out over the water. Okay, broken trace. What are they up to? Well, they're probably bouncing down here into Central America just to make sure everybody has got the new plans. Because if the border's shut at Eagle Pass, centrally located in the middle of the Texas border, end to end, right? Then they're probably giving them, reroute instructions. Hey, this is where you need to go because that location is not going to allow you to get through. Now, let's look at the H-47s. And this does start to tell a little bit of a story because there is what appears to be an uptick domestically as well. Notice the one coming out of Gibraltar, headed up to Marseille into France. A lot of stuff going on over Europe, right? England, very hot and heavy, right? It's been that way. I didn't see anything there that, especially with an exercise going on that, made me perk up and look like, uh-oh. But the U.S., that's a different story. This, where it gets interesting, that is an uptick, folks. That's about 3x what we normally have seen. Long transitions, a lot of banana copter movement, okay? And you guys probably are hearing it if you're in those areas because they are very loud. They make a lot of popping noises as they fly across the sky. Okay, now let's look at the gunships, H-64s. You got a couple here across the center of the U.S., all right? That's going to be your Apaches. Here are your active live H-47s that are currently up. Again, a little bit of an uptick, 9 of those. We typically see about anywhere from 6 to 8 of those as well. Let's look at advanced early warning aircraft, right? So that's your AWACS, the ones with the little UFO saucer on the top. E-3 Sentries, you can see those are pretty active there. Let me jump down. I just want to see if we've got anything. Actually, we won't look at that. We'll just leave it at that for now. All right. Okay. So that's where we are from the skies currently up. Let's take a gander at what's going on in the news cycle, and then we're going to come back in and look at the Swift airs, etc. Okay. So this will be your Swifts currently up. All right, as you can see, that interior move to Reno, right? We're watching some of the intel community flying over the Reno, Nevada area. So it looks like we're keeping an eye on some folks that probably are a little bit of a concern, popped up on some of our watch lists, knowing that they are in the interior of our country, right? We didn't stop them. No, we gave them a phone and some money and said, hey, go on, do your thing. We'll call you in about 20 years when our court system starts to thin out, which it's not anytime soon. But okay, anyway, notice lots of flights down here. This could be because what they were doing is more than likely, instead of, I originally thought, oh, they're exporting people. They're kicking them out of the country. I'm starting to really think that mission scope has changed. And yeah, there's some that come out of Alexandria, Louisiana, that get kicked out. But I think there are folks that we're flying down here and picking up the women and the children and flying them probably straight into San Antonio and then sending them across the country. That's just my take on it. But you can't have them mixing in, because the male military age fighting males that are coming up through the border, it's over 60%, right? So you don't want to have women and children mixed into these people, because you got a lot of criminals that are mixed into that, as well as terrorists, which I guess that is a criminal activity, isn't it? All right. But what does the Swift look like over the last couple of days, right? Last 3 days, look at this change. Notice the amount going down into Central America. Like I said, I think they're picking them up and bringing them into San Antonio. Women and children, get on the planes. You're not going to have to walk that journey. And then notice the ones going into Florida. Notice also it's not as heavy as it normally is, right? It has thinned out just a little bit, although it is higher than the typical that we've seen in the past. But over a 3-day span, it's not fanning out. They look to be more concentrated into other areas, okay? Like the same areas that we normally see, but okay. Let's get over here. Texas National Guard flies the come and take it flag as border tensions grow. Yeah, there's the little cannon flag as you guys have seen it. Yeah, we're just kind of poking at the feds right now. I think this could get really interesting to see how this all shakes loose. The crazy thing is, you could end up having, Flashbang, if he creates some type of a war instance in the Middle East, he could very well actually activate those National Guard troops and deploy them to the Middle East or somewhere else. I don't put that past him to do it. He could also federalize those Guard units. So let's see what happens. I think we're all kind of on the edge of our seats waiting to see what this buffoon does. But anyway, all right. Jumping on over here to Flashbang's schedule, you can see, looks like he's headed up to Capitol Hill, and he's attending the National Prayer Breakfast. That's at that point, he will probably be asleep. But from here, he's headed to Detroit. Interesting area to be going, given the fact that they are getting a ton of immigrants up there, and the fact that the F-150 electric vehicle has pretty much tanked. So I'm sure he'll get a very warm reception. Okay, over to this. Well, actually, let's look at this before we get into it. These are the TFRs, so you can see it. So he's headed to Detroit, and then he's actually headed home for the weekend again. Okay. All right, U.S. officials deliver warning that Chinese hackers are targeting infrastructure. Keyword here, infrastructure. That means the banking system. That means the power grid, right? Nuclear power plants. Anything and everything that's the infrastructure aspects within the continental United States. And that's not good, because they will be successful. If you've figured anything out, our cyber attack position here in the United States is very weak. Okay, and I can tell you that coming out of a defense contractor who looked like the deer in the headlights when you tried to find out where they were relative to a proposal on that element, right? Cybersecurity, where are you? Oh, we don't have anybody? Okay. That's not good. So yeah, they're targeting infrastructure. You can see what it looks like coming into the United States. Of course, China's over here, so you can see them coming off of this side. There are some volleys coming in the United States from China, But Europe seems to still be the big focal point in terms of who's getting popped or who we're getting popped by. Look at that as it starts to kick in overdrive. U.S., Germany, U.K., Brazil, Israel, top 5. All right. Okay. Massive new air combat exercise underway along the California coast. Yeah, you can see Air National Guard doing some refueling on that F-22. What a beautiful aircraft. But yeah, if you want to see what that looks like over here on this side, just kind of get into the deets. This is an area that's had this box for quite some time. Notice, I will point out, there is some very heavy turbulence at 18,000 feet. Let's see what happens to it when you get up to about 30,000. Looks like a lot of weather moving into the region, which will make for some very interesting flying, to say the least, especially air refueling. But yeah, this box is in play, and this is an area we've been watching very closely. Again, also notice the weather that seems to be coming directly into this side of the house. All right, and then, of course, all of the other boxes. Now, I will tell you, last night, like I said, 9 p.m., having 70-plus H-60 Blackhawks all across the United States was definitely a rare thing. We don't see it very often. I've seen it a couple of times when Trump was in, but it is definitely not a common occurrence, okay? So our military does seem to be on an up-tempo, phase right now. So we'll see if it's just a pulse, if it mellows back out, but everybody seems to be really kind of stepping up their game, okay? But this kind of gives you a general idea of what's going on here domestically. Now, let's look over, just because I've got folks that are watching from South Africa, what you've got, other than you got a lot of slop down here, a lot of weather and turbulence. Looks like we got one box here, all right? Looks to be missile firing, which, you can see it is kind of an elongated box. Not typical what we see for the missile firing side. You've got some stuff going on up here. But the big takeaway, look at this here, unmanned aircraft scheduled, all right? So if you're wondering what's going on down over your head, especially down here in Cape Town, these gray boxes, as I zoom in, are unmanned aircraft. So you got a lot of drone activity happening in your neck of the woods, all right? So just pay attention there. This is a sea of drone activity, all right? Unmanned aerial reconnaissance, all right? Don't see that from this high. And we go down here to Australia, and you can see, we'll look at some of the boxes going on here. Let me back up because it seemed to fade out. So you've got some there to the east of Melbourne. You have a little bit south of Sydney, right? And then Perth looks to be covered up with a lot of things. Up here to the north, and I don't know why, every time I zoom in, it seems to want to go away. But, yeah, you can see up here to the northern end a couple of boxes as well. Let me just see what this is. Restricted Tyndall airspace, all right, due to military flying. All right, so, and then up here, same thing. Let's see what this has to say. Sandbar, Eclipse, Chusca. So these are operational names that they're calling out, all right? Okay, now, close eye on this general area. Look at the weather that's coming across, very turbulent at 18,000 feet, all right? All right. That's Europe, and this is all the exercise stuff happening over here. Okay, moving on. This is another data point for you, but 3 NATO allies sign a deal to speed up the military deployments along the eastern flank. That would be areas like Poland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Romania, everything that's pushing over towards Russia and Ukraine, primarily probably the northern side that is very, very close to the Russian side of the house, right? So that would be, if you kind of come in here, this area here, up into, this area along that borderline, right? And Poland. That is the big concern, right? And that's why they are cutting the red tape to get the flow of goods going. Now, it does get pretty interesting. This one coming from the deep state crony, Victoria Nuland. She is, if you don't know who she is definitely a deep stater, folks. U.S. diplomat says Russia should expect surprises on the battlefield. You don't say. Well, let me tell you, the biggest surprise right now is just the mere fact that Ukraine seems to be running out of armament. The blue, those are strikes by Ukraine. And what you don't see are very many blues In fact, over the last 3 or 4 days, I've seen almost zero blues, other than maybe one of the missile defense systems kicking in, okay? And so, like I said, it looks like they are starting to run out of supplies in Ukraine. So it looks like a curtain call, as I would say. All right, this is Biggs Army Airfield. Big thing here. All right, notice that deploying headed to Hunter. That's Savannah, right? That's where we've seen a lot of the intel flights, probably because they've got a compound there for the illegals. Notice this one comes in from Minneapolis, and then we've got a SPA flight, which is based out of Tucson, headed over to Jackson, Mississippi. So it looks to me like they are basically rehoming illegals. We go over to Dover, and the big thing is, this is a very notable change. Look at the amount of 747s on the move. That means we got a lot of equipment moving out from Dover. So it's coming in, being staged. These flights are inbound, empty, more than likely, all right? But these outbounds, those are the ones you got to watch. Where's this one headed back to? This is Coletta headed to CVG, but then you've got a 747 headed to Ramstein, a 747 camper flight, RZE Poland. All right, let me go down a little further, and then one more. Look, 2 flights headed into RZE. Like I said, I think there's going to be a NATO spring offensive, early spring, not late. As soon as things start to thaw a little bit, I think that is their plan. It just very much appears that way, okay, based on the chatter from the European community in terms of their threat level, what they're worried about, right? And then, of course, just the movements of assets being pre-positioned, and the fact that Ukraine has run out, all right? So they know, okay, it is 1 minute to midnight, folks, and we better get our gear together and get ready to fight. All right, this is RMS. So this is going to be Ramstein, all right? Just notice, again, 747's inbound, 67, that's going to be troops coming into Ramstein, at which point they'll be redeployed either to the Middle East or into somewhere in Europe. All right, then we go down a little further. Let me see, you got a C-17 looks to be coming in, another C-17 coming out of England, although that could be an R-135. A SPAR-71, right, leaving, headed back to Joint Base Andrews. So you got the blue and white dignitary coming in, talking to everybody, probably making sure everybody's got an eye lock on what's coming, all right? Again, that's Ramstein. Now, over to the camper flights. Look at the flights going into Kuwait. Why is that important? Because, remember, Kuwait is a fantastic staging ground. They're very neutral in terms of the United States. We've used them in the past when we've attacked other areas within, especially into Iraq. But the fact that we are lining up 777, 67s, 300s, right? Extended range, those are ERs. The fact that these are coming in, that's troops. We're putting boots on the ground into Kuwait, folks, and that would tell you that the Middle East is probably very close to going hot, right? The exercise over here in Europe, it's totally different than the folks that are getting deployed out here in the sandbox, all right? But that becomes very important, because if we do strike right across, now notice proximity, this is Iran over here, right? In and out of Kuwait, you can hit a lot of different targets, right? You've got Syria up here, you've got Iraq here, you've got Iran right here. So if you're starting to stack up assets here, if you just pushed a whole bunch of fighters into here, which looks like that's the case, then it looks very likely that we're getting ready to start popping some shots off into maybe Iran, given the close proximity to it. All right, here's RZE Poland. Big thing is, notice on the board what's coming inbound. Dover, 747, MD-11, right? So that's going to be probably troops. Could be some artillery, but it's coming in from Rickenbacker. So that is Columbus, Ohio. That's probably troops. All right, German Air Force is in there. Leaving Coletta, 747. There's that MD-11 Western Global headed into Frankfurt. All right, that's going to be RZ Poland. Again, here, this is a headline, just what my observations have been over the last 3 days, and now it comes out. Ukraine running short on weapons as war with Russia about to pass the 2-year mark. Yeah, they got nothing else to shoot. And we're, tightened up the purse string. So they're dependent on the rest of NATO to give them what they need. All right. The Brits, where are they headed today? It looks like they're here domestically in the United States, coming out of Albuquerque. Here, they're part of that deployment, by the way. The Royal Air Force and the Royal Australian Air Force is also part of this exercise out off of Southern California. All right, Omni flight, Seattle to Yokota, so in and out of Japan. So it looks like moving some things around there. And then Western Global, Frankfurt, we just talked about that one coming out of RZE. So we know that's very, very active flights into RZE in terms of the troop side of the house. All right, positioning those assets. All right, and then let's see, this is going to be, let me just double check this. This is Doha. All right. Notice here coming inbound. Right. That's a reach. Could be air refueler, but could be C-17, C-130. It's logistics. Right. Camber flight, Kuwait. There we go. Right. That one's coming inbound from Kuwait, and then over here it looks like it's turning back and going back to Kuwait. So Doha looks to be a little staging ground. All right. Servicing Kuwait. And then this is Djibouti. And we're just looking to see if I got anything that catches my eye, and I'm not seeing. That looks to be, that's Air France. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything from that standpoint. Okay, so Djibouti looks to be clean. Oh, right. Make myself laugh. All right, here it is. NATO looks like you got one. Oh, NATO's been in Roswell, New Mexico. All right, excellent. Headed to El Paso. What are you doing in our neck of the woods there? It looks to be taking off. And, we'll just kind of keep an eye on that. But NATO's here domestically. So, all right, well, listen, folks, that's going to do it for your SITREP today. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your time. Remember, if you're ever on Patreon, we will have the Under the Radar on Saturday. And then, of course, the Monkey Minute on Sunday. So that's it. You guys take care. Keep that powder dry and definitely stay frosty. Times they are changing. That's it. God bless. Monkey out. Thanks for watching, folks. You can check out the latest gear and products by selecting the QR code on your screen now or go to monkeyworksus.com.